And then I would like to get started. So today's webinar, we will dive into prose mining for higher education. And this is a project we have been conducting at the Erasmus University in the last couple of months. And after releasing our customer success story, we would also like to share the dashboard and show you around of what we've been doing. In today's session, I first want to introduce ourselves, obviously, then go into the situation where Erasmus University is and why they started with prose mining and this particular project. Then for everyone to get on the same level, before I start showing any demo, I would like to introduce you to prose mining itself, what conceptually it actually is and how a project would look like. Then we go into the student journey, have a live demo, obviously have some cool results and show our vision of how we want to bring prose mining to any organization such as the Erasmus University. So for everyone who doesn't know Apolix yet, I'm the co-founder together with Alexander. He won't be joining today's call, but we started Apolix over 2 years ago after studying at Erasmus University. We are a consultancy agency specialized in data-driven process optimization, which we also call process mining. And we're located here in Rotterdam. And we have been doing a couple of really cool projects over the last 2 years, such as at the Erasmus University, but also other companies and organizations in the area, such as the municipality of Rotterdam, the zoo, Diergaarde Blijdorp, and also the municipality of The Hague. And at our core of our company is transparency, which means that we will make process transparent for any organization, but also during webinars like this, we would like for everyone to be able to fully understand what we're talking about. And that's why I will also explain prose mining at its core. But please don't hesitate to also ask questions if you have them during the session. Wietse will also be monitoring our chat. So if you have any question, he will just interrupt me and make sure that it's all answered. Also, at the end of the session, we do have a Q&A. And by bringing this transparency to organizations, we really want to help organizations understand what's happening in their processes, in their organization, in order to improve from there. And as a consultancy agency, we're extremely focused on business value, meaning that we don't want to just get a big data set, do all things with it in order to just write hours, but we're really focused on finding the exact value, what an organization is looking for, which we also really focus on in this project for the ESL. So, Wietse, here I would like to give the stage to you.
Thank you. Welcome all. My name is Wietse Buijs. I am the information manager of Erasmus School of Law and also a teacher there. Well, we started doing the pilot with process mining because, like you all probably, we're in the middle of a pandemic and we weren't able exactly to give everybody just the right management information that we would have liked. And we are a big faculty. We have a lot of students, 5,500 students, and all those students are in a few programs, but there are lots of different students within the program and different kind of students, like double degree students with economic program or business administration program, but also students who only study in their free time besides from their day job. And because of the pandemic, more and more people and management wanted to know, and of course our university management wanted to know how people were doing within the study and were they doing better or worse during the pandemic as a result of the pandemic and as a result of the digital education we were providing for them. And we weren't quite able to provide our management with the right information on how the groups within our programs were doing. And that was when one of my colleagues attended us to the possibility to do process mining in this case. And process mining was an excellent ability for us to combine multiple, like our student information system, with our own administration system to be able to get more information of every student journey. So in a tough time of the pandemic, we were much more able, as a result of that, to show our management what kind of students were doing good, what kind of students were doing less good. If our students were falling out more, for example, and that was even before the pandemic was something we couldn't quite measure up for every kind of students within our program, because we weren't able to differentiate between our double degree students who were in our spare time education program and for example, the people who studied law as part of a program after their full-time day job. We couldn't differentiate between those kind of students, so we couldn't just say which group was doing better. And that led, of course, to a few problems within our education program, because after the first year, where they, of course, had to show that they were able to get the necessary points in the year 2 and 3, we didn't quite know and do not quite know how those certain students do within our education problem, and where they are held up, or where they are excel or might not excel. So process mining in this case for us was very important pilots to give us more insight in our own students and their student journey. And that student journey is one of the most important things that's that process mining is enabling us to give more back to the students if we see that the student journey is less than optimal. So yeah, we were very happy with the results that Apolix provided us with to use in the coming years, of course, to actualize the results that they provided us within the platform, so we can steer more towards a student journey that is satisfying for the students as well as for us within the nominal time of the study program. That's it for me, Joost.
Yeah, thanks, Wietse. So yeah, it is indeed very important to be able to understand how students actually flow through their bachelor's and their master's, if it retakes certain years, and what our indicators are for their performance. And that sounds extremely fancy and really interesting to get, but how do we actually get there? We call it data, but what are we looking for, and what is process mining exactly? Well, let's dive into that. Process mining is a data-driven way to optimize your business processes. And that being said, I want to go a bit deeper into that. You have to imagine that every time you work in an IT system, let's say a student registration system, and a student starts their bachelor, or they finish a course, or they graduate from their program. At such moments, a digital breadcrumb is created in your IT system. And such a digital breadcrumb consists of 3 parts. A digital breadcrumb consists of a timestamp, and which activity we're talking about, and which student we're talking about. So if you visualize digital breadcrumbs throughout an entire program, we can follow exactly when a student started their course, passed their course, took a resit, maybe went to another program, etc., up until the moment they graduated. And the great thing of this is that we are not limited to only having one IT system. The Erasmus University, as most other organizations, have a lot of different IT systems in which they track, for example, their student journey. And by being able to combine the data from these 2 IT systems, we've been able to check when a student starts with a course and also when they pass or fail a course. And by getting these insights per individual student, you understand what they actually flow through. However, at this point, we could also just ask the student how they actually went through their studies and ask them how long that took. But the great thing of process mining, actually working with data, is that you can not only do this with 1, 2, or 3 students, but you can get a full overview of how all your students during a certain time span went through their studies. So based on that, you can actually analyze how groups of students are going through certain courses or through certain tracks. Is one minor more difficult than another? Are students from a certain study program which do a course in another more keen to succeed or to fail? So by combining data from all students in one overview, you're able to actually deep dive into what's happening in your process and also see optimization potential or see points where you can actually support a student becoming a better student and helping them through their studies easier. So that being said, process mining consists of four big steps. First, we need to find these digital breadcrumbs. Where are they located in your IT system? And are we using more than one IT system or not? We find that data and export that towards the process mining platform which we're using, Celonis. And in there, we start to make this skeleton, make this process map, and connect these digital breadcrumbs to each other in order to create transparency in your process. So you're able to see the entire student journey of all students involved, and you're able to filter on these to track how groups are doing. Once you have created that transparency and validated that that's actually corresponding with reality, you can start analyzing in order to figure out which courses are hurdles, where students take longer, what kind of weird exceptions students are taking up until the moment they graduate or actually drop out. And based on all these insights, you can start improving your study program. Maybe you want to change the order of courses, or you want to help and intervene with students in order to improve their study progress based on the results they get in the first or second year. These four phases need to happen in any process mining project. And we created a process mining project structure for this as well. At Erasmus University, we have started with the analysis of an admission process. We've done a webinar about that a couple months ago, but here we are looking at the second pilot. And here we call that approval value, which consists of four phases. First, you start mapping your process. So how would a normal student journey look like in order to also find these digital breadcrumbs throughout your IT systems. After you map the digital breadcrumbs, you are building that transparency, which I talked about. So you discover the process and validate if that's actually correct or not in order to build a single source of truth and start analyzing. The analysis is extremely important to understand where those bottlenecks are, where those inefficiencies are, and where you can actually help students in order to come to a solution proposition at the end of such a project. At that moment, it's time to actually improve and understand what is happening in your student journey, and which you can afterwards continuously monitor in order to check if, after we did these improvements, students actually flow better through the process or not. And that's great about using data. Once you've created initial transparency, we understand where those digital breadcrumbs are, we can copy and paste that and do it a year later again, and do the same analysis and benchmark these 2 years together in order to see if our improvements actually helped or not at all, in order to continuously optimize your processes. We've done a couple of projects with multiple customers, and we actually see a couple of things which are very important to make a process mining project successful. First of all, makes a lot of sense as well, is the availability of those digital breadcrumbs. Is the data there, and are people using IT systems? This is something you already discussed prior to starting such a project. But what's also extremely important is the team you're working with. Because data says a lot. You can do a lot of analysis with data, and you can make a lot of assumptions and analysis with data. However, you need to understand what is actually happening within such a process. For example, within the Erasmus University, there are a lot of exceptions on the rule. And in order to understand that, you need to talk with someone who also understands the process itself. Someone who can tell you how a process looks like, and if you see certain deviations, also explain why that happens. Because based on that, you can adjust your analysis, take it into account, and come a bit closer to the single source of truth in order to start analyzing your process as well. Additionally, you need a data expert, someone who understands where the digital breadcrumbs come from and what they mean. Sometimes IT systems have weird definitions, they are located in different places throughout an IT system or multiple IT systems, and you need some support in order to help locate these and start making sure that you actually understand what is happening. When you have that team, you always start off with some collaboration. And it's extremely important that this team is also super enthusiastic and also stand behind a data-driven way of working. Because once you open this box of Pandora, where you see all kinds of data and timestamps and weird process paths, you want to work together in order to fully understand what is happening. And the great thing is, for any project we are doing, the workload is really at the process mining experts, which are we in the bottom left corner. We only need to validate what is going on, have conversations in order to optimize and structure the analysis better, and validate that again with the experts over there. Throughout the process, you are working and collaborating a lot with this team, and you work together towards also that team using process mining in the end, in order for an organization to start using process mining themselves and start optimizing their student journey, as we are right now also starting doing at the ESL. So the student journey. Rita already elaborated why we started the project at the ESL. And it's extremely important to notice that students who have delays in their student progress is something we want to get rid of. We want to help students graduate within the normal times of their study phase. And for everyone who's not living in the Netherlands, we have a couple of things which might be useful to know. In our bachelors, at least in Rotterdam, they take 3 years, and our masters take on average 1 year. Also, we have something we call a BSA, which basically says after your first year, you need to attain a certain amount of points, certain amount of credits in order to be allowed to go to the second year. And attaining that BSA doesn't always happen, but for some exceptions, people can still go to the second year and do their first year courses again. And this BSA is something important within the student journey, as this is a indicator of the performance after their first year. After we did our first project at the Erasmus University, we indeed looked at the admissions process. And now we take a look at the more process, more at the core of the Erasmus University itself. How do students actually flow through the process? And in order to give these insights and have certain clear goals for our project, we took the following.
It's also good to know for the bachelor programs and as well for the master programs that universities in the Netherlands get little money for a student from the government when they enter a study, and they get a lot of money for a student when they graduate there. So every university has the most to gain if students graduate within the time frame that they are set out to study with us. So if they they will study a year or more than a year longer, we actually don't get additional funding for these students.
Yeah, so keep in mind that if a student takes 7 years to graduate from a bachelor, the university gets a bit of money at the start, and then they will get paid for the first 3 years after the 7th year when a student graduates. So first of all, you have to wait for your tuition fee, but also those 4 years afterwards, the extra years, actually only costs money. So there is an intention also to help students graduate within those 3 years or 1 year at a master. Going back to the core of the process, first we really want to discover what the student journey looks like. As Rita said before, there are multiple IT systems, and for the ESL, it's been very difficult to understand what actually happens for a student. After they finish their first year, they have a bit more freedom, and they can, for example, do an internship, get some delays, and in the end, you really don't know what is happening with that student anymore. So the first goal is to understand what happened for all these individual students. Then, in order to make sure that students also graduate in the nominal time, so the 3 years for the bachelor and the 1 year for the master, we want to look at causes for delays. Which courses cause a delay, and what delay do they cause in the end? And lastly, what are indicators for study performance? I've already mentioned the BSA. So does a student get the certain credits within the first year? What does that mean for their perspective of graduating within 3 years in the bachelor? And what if they don't? How are the odds of them also graduating within 3 years? So we can look at certain study indicators in order to understand if students will or will not graduate in time, and maybe also help them throughout their progress in order to do graduate in time. To quickly summarize, everything you'll see in the demo after this is all anonymized and the numbers are fake. So that's for obvious data reasons, but we've been looking at a period of about 7 years, because from that moment onward, the ESL changed their study program from having big lectures to actually small workshops where students get more attention and also get more flexibility in how to go through their program. And that's also the reason why we only started there, in order to understand how these students are performing. We're looking for both the bachelor's and the master students, and we obviously focus on that graduating. So how many students do graduate within 3 years, and how many students graduate for a master's within 1 year. In the demo, we will visualize the student journey, which we talked about earlier. We will see what kind of hurdles there are, see those indicators of performance, and also how we would be able to monitor the performance of courses and students themselves. So let's go into the demo, and keep in mind also here all the numbers are fictional, so they are based for demonstration purposes only. Currently, we are in the process mining platform of Celonis, and everything you'll see is then also based on data. And you see a lot of numbers right now, but let's focus on the left-hand side, the bachelor students. We see the number of bachelor students that are in our analysis. We also see how many of these have been graduating, so a good 41%. Let's focus on one specific study, fiscal tax law. What we can see right now is that of these students, 55% graduated within 3 years. That means that another 45% of the students already graduated did not do that in 3 years, and so are causing a delay. And these are the students we really want to focus on, because these are the students at the core of our problem. And what is great is, because we look at which courses these students went through, we can also immediately see which are the difficult courses for these students. Again, the names are anonymized, but we gave them numbers. And what we can see immediately is that course 51 has a low passing rate in the first try, indicating that it is indeed a difficult course to go through. If we look at master students, we see something else happening. Also here, less than half of the students actually graduate within 1 year. So the problem would indicate to be even bigger at master students. However, we see the 62% over here. And that 62% means that 62% of the students that graduated within 2 years of their masters, so having 1 year of delay, only had one resit in their masters. And what happens a lot in the Netherlands, and especially with law students, is that they go and do some internships, have a side job during their studies, maybe go on exchange, or go into a board year. So these students actually actively choose to have a study delay, and by helping them get through their courses, will not really have the effect which we are hoping for, as the students do already want to take that second year. So with process mining and by using data, we're also able to select the group of students we actually want to focus on, as these 62% of students are not interested in graduating within 1 year. Currently, we've seen a lot of numbers, and I think it's very interesting to see where those numbers are coming from, because we are in the end looking at the student journey and a process. So let's dive into that. What we see right here, and it is very small, I'm aware of that, is a student journey. We see students starting their courses. and also passing courses. And what we can immediately see is the color at the passed course. This indicates how difficult a course has been for the groups of students. We see that on average, these students need 1.25 tries in order to pass course 51. And we see the students flow through their student journey by starting all kinds of courses and finishing and graduating at the end. Important to note here is that this is only a subset of all the courses and the paths students take. If we look at all the students that went through this journey, we see a bigger view coming along. And I will not give you the full 100% because that will basically crash my computer. But we can very clearly see that the ESL has been very good in offering flexible education to their students. Basically, all student paths are unique. And that also explains why it's super hard to understand how students flow through their process, as basically no student is the same. And by having these insights, you can aggregate and make groups of students in order to understand how certain groups flow through the process and actually help these students better instead of having a spaghetti model like we have here. As said before, the length of the student's journey is extremely important. How quick are they graduating, and how can we help the students that take longer to graduate? First, we want to understand which those courses are that form hurdles for students to graduate. Because again, we work with data, we can immediately filter on students that take more than 3 years to finish their bachelor. We get a list with courses which are extremely difficult for these students. And we could select one of those courses in order to see the delay. So also let's do that. And filter on course 101. Now, if we filter on course 101, we see a graph that indicates how many attempts a student needed to finish and pass this course. We see the majority of students actually do that within 1 try. We also see students that take 2, 3, or even 4 tries to finally pass this course, causing a delay in the student journey. And we know that course 101 is actually a 3rd year's course. So if they need more tries, they actually get delays in their bachelor's and take more years to graduate. If we look at that, we can even see how much of a delay these students get. So here we have the students who passed the course within 0 to 3 months. It's basically just walking through the course as any other student would do. However, we see also a group of students that take 2 to 4 years. So imagine a student takes 4 years to finish a 3rd year's course, will only graduate in their 7th year of their bachelor. So that's 4 years not being funded by the government, but also 4 years of a student being delayed and not be able to go on with life and go to their masters. So these are the students you want to help or to graduate earlier, or already know beforehand that these will have difficulty with courses like number 101 in order to help them out and make them go smoother throughout their student journey. So what are these indicators for the time to graduate for these students? Well, first of all, we'll focus on the BSA. As I've mentioned before, this is an indicator after the 1st year of a bachelor if a student passed enough courses to go to their 2nd year. And there are exceptions on the rule where students who did not attain all those points can still go to their 2nd year. And we want to see if that group of students performs as good or maybe worse than the other students. This graph shows if you attained that BSA in your 1st year, how many of the courses you passed within 1 try. And what we can see here is the students who passed the BSA get 65% of their courses they pass in 1 try. But students who did not get the BSA only have a number of 50%. So they have a much smaller chance of passing all their courses in 1 try, and such as also a higher chance of getting a student delay. And all these insights you can easily get for every student group you want to focus on. So now we focus on the entire group of bachelors. We can also go into a certain program and deep dive into reasons why these students get more delayed. A second indicator are certain courses. So let's take, for example, a course that is at the start of your first bachelor year. What are the odds if you pass that course that you will also graduate within 3 years? So we take course 51, which is one of the starting courses we've seen. And for students who pass course 51 in one try, over half of them actually graduate within the 3 years, which is a higher percentage than we've seen at the start. So these students make a better chance of graduating in time, which we want as the ESL. However, students that take more than one try, for example, 2 or even 3, you can see the percentage of them graduating within the 3 years lowering immensely. And if you know that course 51 is already a good indicator of the student performance after the 3 years, you can even combine that with different courses and start analyzing a student earlier than after only their first year. Maybe you can support them throughout the student journey in order to help them graduate in those 3 years. Lastly, we like to understand how students individually went through the process and also help them on individual basis. So if we look at third-year students, so the students that already are at the end of the studies and probably already over their 3 years, we can see the time since they started at the ESL, which is very often higher than 3 years, meaning that these students are the group of students we want to prioritize on helping get through their bachelor's in order to maybe continue to their master's, but at least graduate. And if we select such a student, we can also even see what the path of such a student was. So if we go back to our Process Explorer, we can take a look at this student's journey and see that indeed he took 2 tries in order to finish course 1. Even 3 tries to finish course 57. And what if we already were using prose mining those couple of years ago, knowing that the combination of these 2 courses is a good indicator for the performance after for graduating, then we could already intervene and actually help these students get through their bachelor much easier and help them graduate in time and have a successful student journey. So in most prose mining projects, the focus is actually on making more money. However, here we really took the qualitative approach and really want to understand how students do flow through the process, where we can help them, if we can improve courses that are more tough, if we can understand what happens during their student time in order to have a better qualitative life. And that's also very important, and that's what we want to focus on in our impact of the project. What we did is actually create complete transparency. As you've seen with the student journey of basically all students involved, where we can go down into groups, but also onto the individual level to help them understand what is happening within the faculty. Note that this was really not possible beforehand when we're looking at 2 different systems. Well, now we have this single source of truth, one platform that helps us understand what is happening. And we can create data-driven evaluations in order to improve our processes. So instead of hearing from students or kind of having a feeling that courses are too difficult or courses should maybe be qualitative, higher quality, we can actually see it in the data and understand that these courses do need some improvement or that certain students do need some more attention. We really understand the indicators of the performance. We really understand if a student fails in the first couple of courses, that it might be very tough for them to go through the bachelor within 3 years. And as I said as well, we created a single source of truth. And what's important with any prose mining project, we basically make an audit of your data. We look for all those digital breadcrumbs. And what we can see as well is whether the quality of the IT systems is good and if the data is coherent. So what we, for example, have seen is a couple possibilities to improve the data quality at the ESL, making all other kinds of dashboards and analysis more valid through another project, which is called process mining. If we look at the quantitative impact, also here, this is just indicative figures. You can think of it in a couple of ways. First of all, capacity planning. If we know that's what phase students are in their student journey, and we know how many will follow a certain course in the next year, we can already start planning on how many teachers we need, how many exam rooms we need, etc., giving more insights into what capacity we need and maybe also saving costs on that. The other one is even more easy, and that is the delayed tuition fee from the government. Basically, the moment a student gets a delay, as mentioned before, we get our money later, and we get only the money for the first 3 years. So by helping students graduating faster, we actually help improve the working capital of the faculty. So those are the results of our project, and you can stop right there. However, you really want to continuously using process mining in order to improve the courses, the student journeys, and the data-driven way of working within the university for a longer period of time. And what's extremely important to get then is an operating model. An operating model consists, in this case, of 3 parts. First, be able to continuously monitor the data. So for that, we need new data and new insights in order to see how the current students are performing. Additionally, you want to train and help the university to also make use of these dashboards. How to analyze based on all the insights we just saw, how maybe to add extra insights which are applicable for a certain teacher. With that, we help the university also to get trainings and get onboarded on this platform. And lastly, you want the university also start improvement projects and otherwise also monitor the effect these improvements had over time in order to see if these improvement projects made sense or that they need another approach in order to help the students get through their student journey. And all of this is basically impossible without using data. If you talk with students and measure or look how they walk through their student journey, you will never be able to understand how difficult courses are, how long students take for their certain courses, and what the delay is for these specific courses. It's impossible to look at that for all the students that went through the university and also quantify the business cases over time. We basically only get a one-time insight in what is happening for 1 or 2 or 5 students. With process mining, we can start by analyzing these digital breadcrumbs and do that over time and make this also complete and objective. And when we want to see new data, we can just load it in and also see the results of that in order to understand what happened in the last year, enabling university to actually continuously improve and monitor their student journey. So right now we've done a pilot or 2, and for process mining, for us it's very important that an organization is also taking process mining into their own organization if they want to. So right now we've done 2 pilots, and we're currently in the phase of handing over the dashboards towards Erasmus University, giving trainings, also making sure they can adjust dashboards themselves and continuously upload new data. At a certain moment of time, you want the university or the organization to make new analysis on existing process or even new processes themselves. For them to build a process mining center of excellence, help the university become data-driven and understand what happens in the entire university and continuously improve not only 1 or 2 processes, but in the end on all processes a university has. And right now we are done with our second pilot, where we also helped we collaborated with the faculty itself. We are in the phase of meedoen, which means doing this project together. The next one at Erasmus MC, we're aiming to even help be more of in a supportive role instead of taking full ownership of this. as we want to work towards the Prose Mining Center of Excellence, where a university can do this all by themselves. Now I want to thank everyone for listening to my story and that's of Wietse's. And I'm very curious to hear if you have any questions.
Yes, Joost, I have a question. Especially when I'm looking at your last image. Do you think that process mining is a complement to traditional education research, or can it completely replace it?
What do you mean with educational research?
We have a small team of education researchers here in Erasmus MC, and well, they're looking, for example, at socioeconomic backgrounds. So apart from the information which is in the student information system, they look at other contexts to see what the reason is for certain progression or delay in the student journey. So when you add that kind of data which you are collecting to your base of truth, as you call it, can you then integrate that? And is process mining then a complete replacement for traditional ways of research?
I think you can absolutely integrate this together, and that would be very, very valuable as well. What you will be able to do then is understand, you first have KPIs, for example, seeing a number and, for example, the success rates of these students with this background. What's then very interesting, what you can do with Prose Mining, is go behind this KPI and understand what happened for this group of students in order to have a deeper, make a deeper analysis, what happened with the students throughout the student journey, for example. So I think it's very complementary, and it's something what we're saying as well. You want to have this in your organization for researchers to be able to use Prose Mining and make their analysis way more valuable themselves.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a replacement. It's just an complementary, extra.
Yeah.
But if I can add to it, it is, you have data analysts, I believe you mean, that actually provide the management information on a basis from your student information system. But factors like social factors, like you mentioned for the students, you can add that as a source within the system as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes it even more comprehensive as an information system and a prediction system based on actual numbers, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Maybe a question for me to Wietse. Now knowing what you've seen during this project and also understanding the value of Prose Mining, how would you like to expand the knowledge about you have from the student journey for maybe even richer analysis, or how would you apply this at the university?
Well, that's a good question. Thank you. Well, I'm very enthusiastic over these results, and I think we will be looking into our studio advisors and their needs to follow students on a micro level as well. We didn't think of that beforehand, but student advisors can actually look through the system and look to the individual studies, the students, and view their student journey, and on the basis of that can advise better on what to do for students. So the next step for us would be to also incorporate a micro level of process mining, but we are definitely trying to incorporate the whole of this process mining into our yearly and monthly management reports on how students are doing and how we can help students do better by if we see that a lot of students have trouble with certain subjects to be able to get them to do remedial courses, for example. We also are on the workings of starting an individualized learning path for students to go to do their student journey in the coming years. and viewing how students did, it can optimize their individual student journey. So we can advise them very much so to how to do the flow within our programs on an individual basis.
That's actually extremely interesting. Also, following like on the micro level, if you know what is in this analysis, would you say that you would need even more insights into other qualitative data points, or is this already enough?
Well, mostly for student advisors to be able to view individual student journeys is mostly enough. But well, like Dieter said in his question, we also in the future, perhaps if we could, we'd like to incorporate social factors from like how do our students from different educational programs, how do they do when they come to us, and from different education platforms before what their indication of their how well they do in our education, of course. And we're not looking to ban them or something. We'll never use these factors to actually negatively influence students, but how we can help them to do better within our education platform.
Thanks, Wietse. I got a question in the chat from Anna. As a certified Salonis data engineer, I'm very interested in more details about getting initial data. Which LMS system, for example? And with LMS system, I am assuming that is some sort of student tracking system, or correct me if I'm wrong.
LMS is a learning management system. So that's in the case of Erasmus School of Law and Erasmus as a whole, that would be Canvas. And Canvas is improving drastically in the last few years with their Canvas data platform. So we have lots of data to be able to load onto as a source to Salonis here. And our student information system is Osiris. It's a Dutch platform.
Yeah. So Anna, for this specific project, we looked at Osiris and a custom-made system of the ESL, which tracked the student progress and also which courses they started and belong to. In addition to this project would, for example, be getting Canvas, the LMS, towards the analysis. And that is in that way also very doable because you're already looking at the students themselves. So that is a connection that's already made. Does it answer your question, by the way?
Yeah, hello everyone. It does, thank you. But we tried, I'm from St. Petersburg Polytechnic University, and we were already trying something in the same direction, only on very small scope. And I'm really impressed by the scope of your project. What we did, we actually took logs from Moodle platform, and it was just for hours to start with, and we loaded this logs from Moodle to Salonis just to see the dynamics, the progress, and the patterns of how students go through this specific course. And what you did, you collected data for many courses for many students. So this is very impressive. And after that, we already started thinking, like, can we use this approach to monitor the path from the very beginning. But our problem is that we have very different lot of sources of data, and these breadcrumbs, they are really spread over all spheres of activity in the university. So now we're a little bit puzzled and are trying to find ways out of to start collecting data. That's why I was asking about like details about that. Thank you.
I think your problem is a very common one, and it's not only limited to universities, to basically every organization out there, that there are extreme high amount of systems that processes, if you look at the end-to-end process, flow through. And that's exactly what we are very good at, is connecting these two processes and make sure that we can find those digital breadcrumbs. So we will always be very inclined to help you and to understand what's happening within your university.
Thank you.
So next question, and I think it's from Tariq. My question is about the conformance-related outcomes of process mining. How a conformance analysis can support improvement of processes in higher education. I think it's a very good question. And when we look at conformance, I think we have to take the level of detail of the analysis into account. Right now, we were looking at the start of courses, passing of courses for each course throughout every bachelor year. If you really want to look at conformance, for example, by just looking at the order of the years, or maybe subsets of the year, you can make a path that students should take if they are, for example, doing a certain bachelor, and then you can actually analyze the conformance of these students. Right now, by having such a level of detail, every student path is basically unique because maybe they passed the course a week after another exam, and then making it already unique for themselves. So you want to take the level of granularity one step higher, maybe not look at passing of course and starting, but only of passing it, and see if that fits within the year what you want to look at. In case you have that, then indeed you can take a look at if students pass courses prior to starting or passing other courses, if that is okay or not. Maybe some courses are dependent on each other. You can only take a second year's economy course if you pass the first one. And if you look at that level, you can actually start checking some conformance in all kinds of ways with process mining. That were the questions in the chat. I'd like to give opportunity to everyone to still ask one or two questions. Otherwise, we're close to ending this hour. So please shoot.
So thank you, Joost. It was an amazing webinar, by the way. I've only seen half of it, but I was still very amazed. So I was curious, you've done a webinar now about the student admission application process and now student journey as well. Do you see any other use cases within the university where process mining might be relevant for?
Oh, definitely. You have to understand that universities, like any other organization, has all kinds of processes every organization has. And same as all those other organizations, they have inefficiencies in this process. So make sure that you're not always only limit yourself to the primary processes, but also think about, for example, IT service management. Because the university has a number of employees, but also have a huge group of students who also, for example, need help with getting their Microsoft Office installed in the first year. And these students all make tickets to an IT service management process. So the amount of cases in these for these universities is enormous. And making the use case for example, these kind of process extremely interesting because you're helping students with it, but also saving costs by optimizing your process.
And I think that's a good answer. Thank you very much.
I think with that, I would really like to thank Wietse for being involved with the webinar and being a great support in the project. And I want to thank all of you for listening to the webinar. We will definitely make sure to reach out to you after this webinar with a quick summary and also the slides of which we have presented. And please reach out to us in case of any questions about process mining within your organization. We love to discuss what is possible, for example, by connecting multiple systems or any use case within a university or other organization. And you can easily reach out to us via the following emails, which you can see on the slides. And we are always very happy to help.
Thank you very much, Joost. It was amazing.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.